Hello, welcome to another episode of Showboys. My name is Mike, and I'm joined, as always, by my good friend and co-host Nick. How you doing tonight, Nick?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Not bad, not bad. Could be a little better, but I'm not going to complain. And we are also joined by a new friend, Sarah from Blackbird, an advocacy podcast, and the Podcasters Collective. How are you doing tonight?
I am doing extremely well. A little tired, but I'll make it through.
Nice.
It's Thursday. We'll make it.
Should be fun. Let me change the background because I accidentally changed it. But yeah, should be a fun, exciting episode for everyone tonight. If you didn't catch the news in the last couple weeks or so, we had the privilege of being interviewed by the Podcasters Collective. Sarah and her friend Tom from Padretti. They were kind enough to invite us on their podcast and interview us and get to know Nick and I and what we do on the show here. And they're both super cool, and it was a really fun interview. We had a lot of fun doing it. I think it turned out pretty awesome. But yeah, we thought it would be fun to have Sarah join us, talk a little true crime tonight, get to learn about her show, Blackbird, and a little bit about the Podcasters Collective as well. So thank you again for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Before we get started, though, I want to say, if you're watching on the live stream or YouTube, please take a second and hit the subscribe button. It really helps us out, helps us grow. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, rate and review on whatever platform you are listening or watching on. And yeah, if you are watching on the live stream, feel free to chime in the comments. We like to throw those up on the screen and talk about them. So yeah, don't be afraid. But yeah, so Sarah, let's just start off learning about your two podcasts here.
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about Blackbird.
Yeah. So Blackbird started a little over a year ago now. Okay. I know a lot of podcasters started their podcasts because of the pandemic, and we were sitting at home and had nothing better to do. So why not start a podcast? So. Right. That was what my husband and I decided to do. I am a trained victim advocate, so I actually go to hospitals around the island where I live, and basically just support victims of sexual and domestic violence. So when the pandemic happened, we were not allowed to go into the hospitals anymore.
Right.
And there actually weren't a lot of victims coming into the hospitals, I think, because they were too concerned about getting COVID themselves going into the hospitals. So I sat back and I was kind of like, what do I do to reach these people since I can't now be in person with them? And that's where Blackbird was created from. And so it's a true crime podcast that really revolves around cases of victims and survivors of sexual and domestic violence mainly. We do talk about other things, but that's the main concept behind what we do.
That's super cool, especially that you said that, that's what you do kind of for your job, and then you're just like, oh, let's turn it into a podcast. And I think it's great because you're providing a voice for people who sometimes, get overlooked or, might be afraid or, feel alone or whatever. And just being able to, get their stories out there. It's super cool and very important and impactful. Unlike our podcast where Nick and I just putz around about what's on Netflix. You're out there making an impact.
No,
which is awesome.
Cool, though. But you know what? We need podcasts like yours too to escape from things like what I talk about. Not everybody wants to sit there and listen to stories about murder and horrific things. So we need people like you. So
that guy right there, he's one of those guys. Yeah. How does that come into play though for you, since your day job is dealing with this stuff, and then your podcasting, which I assume you find enjoyment out of and do for fun because you enjoy it. But then you're also talking about this super heavy stuff that you just dealt with all day. Does that like ever weigh on you at times?
Yeah, it does get difficult at times for sure. It actually, I mean, when we are trained to go out there and speak with victims, we're also taught self-care. That's like one of the number one things that we are trained in. So we have to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves as well, because if we're not taking care of ourselves, we can't take care of others. So it's really important for me to just kind of have downtime for myself, play with my dogs, watch some Netflix, listen to your show, all of those things, because it does get a little trying at times. But I'm on a little break right now because I just started law school again this week. And my podcast kind of pushed me to get back to law school. I was in law school a few years ago and I left because I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. And, I'm in my 30s. I should know what I want to do by now. But sometimes it's hard. But doing my podcast and talking about these cases and getting angry about some of the things that we talk about really, gave me that passion back to get out there and really try to help these victims and survivors. So I'm on a little break, but I'm still, toughing it out because, again, law school is no easy task. So I'm I got to still do the self-care thing.
Right.
Would you consider the podcast kind of part of your self-care routine, at least for a period of time there, especially during the height of the pandemic?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I never really thought about it like that, but yeah, absolutely. It was kind of cathartic in a way to hear these stories and want to bring these stories forward, and also to get the messages that I get from other survivors who aren't on the show. We do survivor stories on the show with we interview the survivors on some episodes. But I also get messages from people who just want to thank me for, sharing things like this because they were a victim or something like that. And so it does definitely allow me to know that I'm doing good. And then, yes, that definitely makes me feel better about it. And I do it with my husband. My husband is my co-host. So, we get to spend time together and chat about things that we normally would anyway. Just, for other people to listen.
Right.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Cool. On the topic of doing the podcast with your husband's significant other, I've been doing like sporadic little series of reviewing kids movies with my daughter who's 6.
Love it.
She's like, we've done 2 so far, and I don't know why she like wants to do podcasting, and like even tonight, Nick, I went upstairs before I came down here to put my podcasting uniform on, which consists of this amazing Taco Bell shirt. Which, if you're counting, this is the second unique Taco Bell shirt that I've worn on the podcast. And yes, I have 2 Taco Bell shirts.
My husband,
this amazing cardigan and my pajama bottoms. Yeah, hey, Target. Go to Target. They have amazing Taco Bell shirts. But yeah, I went up there to tell her goodnight. She's watching her tablet, and she's like, "What?" And I'm like, "You don't have to go to bed. I'm just telling you goodnight because I'm about to go podcast." And she's like, "What?" And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, "Why can't I do it?" I'm like, "I don't, because it's 9:00 at night and I'm doing it with Nick tonight." And she's like, "When do I get to do one with you and Nick?" And I was like, I don't know. Maybe when he watches a movie that we watch. I don't know.
Put it on the schedule. Tell her to schedule it.
I know, right? It's like, hey, learn how to use Google Calendar. Add Nick on there. No.
Get your tablet out.
Yeah, exactly. Come on.
Send me a G-chat.
But on that like whole topic, the 2 like short 20-minute episodes that we've done together, it was just like so cool to get to like do that with family, or like in your case, I imagine it's awesome to be able to do it with your husband. Becca, my wife, has been on one episode with us, and that was really fun.
Nice.
So yeah, I could see how doing that with, you know, people you love to be around already just makes it even more fun.
Yeah, for sure.
So I don't know. I think I already know the answer to this, but are any of the survivors that you feature on your episodes, are those people you work with during your day job? I'm assuming probably not.
No,
Okay.
actually. So the people that I encounter in the hospitals, I am not allowed to have contact with them after I
Right.
leave the hospital, which is really unfortunate. I really wish that there was a program that would allow the advocate to go with them from beginning to end. There are advocates that are with them in the beginning, and then there are other advocates who are with them when they go through like court proceedings and things like that. But otherwise, it's other people within the organization who deal with them. My first case, actually, the parents wanted to get my phone number, stay in contact with me, and I had to tell them, unfortunately, I this is like the end of the road for us, which it's sad sometimes, but so I wish I could have some of them on, but I can't. So the survivors that I've had on are just people who have either reached out to me or I found them via social media.
Nice.
We did a whole month of military sexual assault cases. And it was right after the whole thing with Vanessa Guillen came out. And so there was a whole like campaign on Instagram, the hashtag I am Vanessa Guillen campaign, where it was just a lot of military women coming forward saying, I am also a victim. So I actually reached out to a few of them and they said, absolutely, I would love to be on the podcast. They had never publicly shared their stories before. So it was really incredible to be that person that they trusted enough, having not met them, for them to want to come on and share their story with us. And so we've had quite a few people since then telling us their stories and sharing it and letting everyone out there know that if they have gone through this, they're not alone in it.
Yeah, it's so cool that you guys are able to provide that platform for people. You know, it's kind of therapeutic. But then again, like you said, to your listeners also, like if there's someone, I'm sure there are people, you know, that listen to your show that have gone through things like the people your guests have gone through. So it's just nice for them to know, exactly like you said, that they're not alone and they can share their story too with somebody. You said you are back in law school and that you were previously going to law school. What are you going for now? What were you going for back then?
So my original goal when I first started law school in 2015 was to go into corporate law. I love fashion. That's my other passion. So I really wanted to learn all about like copyright law, intellectual property, all of that kind of stuff. I even went to a fashion law boot camp for one summer, which was absolutely incredible. But I kind of like lost myself because while I wanted to do that, I realized that probably wasn't what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, because I wanted to do something that was going to make a difference. And, you know, it corporate law does in a sense, but it's not really the kind of law that I could see myself doing every single day in and out.
Right.
So I left. I had to reevaluate. I actually went pre-med after that. I got a couple more degrees because I wanted to see, like, I decided maybe medicine was where I belonged to, again, help victims of trauma. I wanted to maybe become a psychiatrist or do something in the mental health field. And then it hit me like, I love the law. I love legal studies. I loved my time in law school. Why not do that with the victims and survivors, but in the legal realm? So
Right.
I have now restarted going through a lot of the classes that I took prior.
Nice.
And it's now my goal to work in victims' rights.
That's awesome.
That's great.
What I mean, I guess you kind of alluded to it there, that you just have that like caring, nurturing like personality trait where you just want to like take care of people. But I'm assuming that's kind of what got you interested in law and advocacy and, you know, this subject matter. Was there maybe anything else, like, I don't know, an experience or like a show or movie or someone in your family was an amazing attorney, or I don't know. Was
Right.
there any other inspiration to the path that you are on now?
So I'm gonna sound super cliche, but I love Law and Order SVU.
Great show.
It has to be a staple there on Long Island, right?
Yeah, oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, you know, that show has always kind of been in the back of my mind. And I know being a lawyer, being a police officer is not at all like what the show does.
It's not.
Maybe like this much.
A little bit.
Everyone's just like iced tea, just rolling
Yes.
around.
Exactly. I mean, if you do walk through Manhattan, you probably will see Ice-T at some point. So that might be real. But just like the stories again that they talk about, and a lot of it obviously is, you know, ripped from the headlines kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And it's the injustices that I see constantly that really has made me want to work with people who are maybe not going to get the best advocacy and counseling and legal services because of their situations, whether it be socioeconomic, race, you know, just that they are in a bad situation in the case itself. So many reasons. And you know, it's unfair. Our legal system is unfair.
Yeah.
It's unfair.
Yeah, could definitely use some work. That's for sure. I have watched way too much SVU with my mom. Like that was the thing we did when I was in like high school.
Yeah. Oh my god.
And our good friend Nick, you might know him, BD Wong, you know, White Rose from Mr.
Oh, yeah.
Robot.
Yeah,
He
that's
was
our
in that
guy.
show.
Yeah.
Good friend of no, I wish he was friend of show.
Show.
BD
We're
Wong,
trying-
if you're listening,
I
to
would
this.
love to have pretty
Come on.
much anybody from SVU on my podcast. So I have reached out to like every single one of them. And Mariska is like the holy grail. So
Oh yeah, of course.
I am like trying desperately to get her on the podcast. My sister's mother-in-law actually used to work on SVU.
What?
So I keep trying to like nudge to
you
like
have the in.
I know. So I gotta give
actually
her something.
I have it's very, you can't see because my camera makes everything look like it's 3 miles away. But there's a White Rose BD Wong Funko Pop up there somewhere.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
Yeah, I have a problem with Mr. Robot
And Funko Pops.
and Funko Pops. Yes.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Also, I'm glad that you humored us and and answered my question with a show. Oh man, but yeah, so I'm assuming you were a fan of the true crime genre, you know, aside from all this stuff. So I hate saying this, but like I'm a big fan of it myself, so I feel like I'm allowed to say it. But
Okay.
like you have to be like a certain kind of like borderline psycho to really like true crime.
Oh, 100%.
So like what got you into true crime? Because it's kind of dark and twisted and really
got
messed
me
up
into true
sometimes.
It is. I don't know if there was one like specific point in my life that I can really like speak to being the catalyst, but I know, I mean, when I was little, I would watch like horror movies and things like that, like young, like 3-4 years old, and not really be fazed by it. And like my husband and I joke that like I must be some sort of sociopath because for the fact that like I'm 4 years old and I'm watching like
Right.
Puppet Master,
Yeah.
and like and I'm just like, that's a cool movie, I really like it.
Yeah.
However, I do have a fear of dolls, so maybe that stems from that.
Makes
I don't
sense.
know. But I don't know. I've just always really been fascinated by just how everything, it's like a big puzzle, how everything kind of just like folds into each other, and you have to, you know, gather all of this information from so many different areas. And I studied serial killers in undergrad. I just recently finished my master's degree in forensic medicine. I worked at the medical examiner's office. So, I mean, I've just always been intrigued by everything that has to do with forensics and criminology and all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's just such a interesting thing to me.
Yeah, I think the puzzle factor is a really great point. Speaking of puzzles, tonight's episode of Showboys is brought to you by our brand new sponsor, Hunt to Kill. No, I'm just kidding. We don't have any sponsors.
That would be so awesome.
Money. I know. But hey, Hunt to Killer, if you're listening,
right?
I will do promos for you.
Right?
I don't know. Do either of you guys know what Hunt to Killer is?
I do not.
It's like
I love Hunt to Killer. I have the boxes.
Oh, I haven't tried it yet. Like I want to try it so bad, but it's like
so fun.
It's just like a true crime board game, basically. That's like,
do they mail it to you?
The dumbest way to
different?
explain it, but yeah, they mail like a kit to you. It's got like,
pretty sure Bianca has described this to me.
I'm sure she has.
Yeah,
it's got like audio kind of stuff, like written stuff.
There's websites.
Yeah, you gotta like.
Okay.
Yes. You're the detective. You gotta figure it out.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Mm-hmm.
There you go. Hunt to Killer, free ad right here on Showboys. So next time, I'm expecting a little kickback.
Sweet.
But that part really, like, joking aside, that part is like kind of intriguing to it, and I think, at least for me, because I know Nick, I know you don't really get into the true crime because you're like a sane person.
There's an asterisk next to that.
But like for me, it's like, one, this stuff happened in real life, which is amazing. Not in a good way, like amazing. Like, how did this happen in real life? And then like that makes me think like, what is like the psychology behind it? Like the perpetrator, or whatever you want to call that. Just like, what is going on in that person's head that like
nothing
made them do this or want to do this, or like think this isn't bad, like whatever, I'll just murder this entire family, and then
exactly
like okay, this is fascinating in all the wrong ways. It's like a train wreck. You can't look away. Yeah, so what's your asterisk, Nick? Gotta hear this.
So I think it's I love serial killers and like the mystery that all this brings, and especially when it's based on a true story. But I have to have that dramatization where it says based on a true story at the beginning. I can't stand, for whatever reason, the like making a murderer, or even like Abducted in Plain Sight, where it's the real interviews and they're then piecing together. I can't grasp that format. It's got to be dramatized for me. I'll watch all the dramatizations of these real life events.
So you're just not a fan of like the documentary stuff.
Yeah, because I feel like there's always 2 times too many episodes, and I'm just like, get to the point. Like, cut all that out. Like, let's get to the point here. Like,
see, here I was thinking that you just didn't like hearing about people being brutally murdered.
No, I do like hearing assaulted. About that. Yeah,
clearly he's cool with that. So
yeah, that's the good part. It's the documentary portion. I think I get lost on.
Yeah, I could see that.
All right.
Yeah, great show recommendation. I'm sure you've seen it, but Mindhunter on Netflix.
Oh,
yes,
good.
Dude.
So good.
I've heard some news. I think we report on it in one of our newscasts, Nick, that
I think it did slide across
in talks. David Fincher and Netflix are in talks to bring it back, which is super exciting news if you're a fan of that show, because up until like a month ago, it's just been indefinitely paused.
Mhm.
So
Because David Fincher was like, I want to go do other things. And everyone was like, no, you're not allowed to go do other things. We need you to keep doing this. We have BTK to watch.
Exactly.
All through. Like
You can't-
BTK doesn't get caught until the 90s. So like we really need him to go through all the way. So he can't stop.
He was playing the long game, and then he's just like, psych, I don't care.
Yeah,
Exactly.
he did
Suck
pick
it,
up
nerds.
the wrong topic to like pull it short there.
Right?
For sure.
Yeah. One of the cool things about Mindhunter actually is so the psychologist on that show, the female psychologist, the woman who that is based on in real life, I actually got to watch one of her talks. I got to attend one of her talks.
Oh, that's cool.
So she's amazing and so cool. And I'm so in awe with everyone who that show is based on.
That's awesome.
They're incredible people.
How close is it based on her? Like, is it
pretty accurate?
So in real life, she's a nurse. She's a nurse practitioner. But she said pretty much everything else about the character, aside from her being gay and a psychologist, is pretty accurate. So, yeah.
Nice. Oh, so you got to hear her talk after the show had come out? That's
yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was last year sometime that we got to see her. Yeah.
Also, I apologize to anyone listening for the constant throat clearing, but as we talked about before we went live, my allergies are going insane. So you just got to kind of deal with it.
It's bad out here.
Yeah. Northeast Ohio this time of year is basically just yellow.
Your
Like,
60-degree basement probably doesn't help either.
That too. Oh, that's so true. When I go upstairs, it's like a 15-degree difference.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, that's great. Another low-key amazing character from that show, Bill Tench. Love that guy. And anytime I see Mr. McElhaney in anything, I love it. Even my father-in-law drugged me to go see Wrath of Man, which is a terrible Jason Statham movie.
He drugged you and took you to the movies? That might be illegal.
Next time he picks a movie, he will have to drug me. But I paid him back because I made him go see Army of the Dead, which was hilarious because my father-in-law is like 70 something, and I was like, "Hey, come check out this awesome Zack Snyder movie."
It's an action flick.
Yeah, he likes just shooting guns and stuff. So I mean, there's plenty of that in that movie.
Dave Bautista in it. You're gonna love it.
Yeah, but yeah, McElhaney was in Wrath of Man, and he was a main-ish character, so he got a lot of screen time, which made me happy because I love that guy. But anyways, 2 more questions here about Blackbird. Sure. You have to have a favorite episode or like a story or series from Blackbird.
Right.
So I'm going to force you to pick one.
Yeah. As we force everyone on Podcasters Collective to also pick one, and it's always difficult. Let's see. So one of my favorite episodes we had, most of my favorite episodes are the survivor stories because we actually got to talk to the survivors. Mm-hmm. One of my favorites was Tara Newell. She was our first survivor story, and she is the woman who killed Dirty John. So we were extremely excited that she even said yes to coming on our podcast in the first place because we were not very well known. We didn't have many episodes at that point, and I reached out to her and she was like, absolutely, I'd come on. Nice. So that was awesome to have her. She and I now are friends. So I'm forever grateful for her coming on. And another one would be another survivor story with a woman named Chris Padretti, who actually was one of the Golden State Killers sexual assault victims. So we got to speak to her about her ordeal and about her speaking at his sentencing hearing and giving her victim impact statement. And so that was also an incredible moment to just hear her words and know that she's okay. This happened when she was a teenager. So it was very difficult for her to deal with it when she was growing up. But she's amazing. She actually runs a Facebook page now for sexual assault survivors. So she's come a long way, and she's such an inspiration. So I'd probably say those two are up there for sure.
That's awesome. How intense are your conversations with these survivors? I would imagine they're probably a little tense, obviously, due to the material.
Yeah, well, we never really want to talk to them about like the details of the traumatic event. We don't want them to have to relive it. We don't really want our listeners to hear that part. I mean, if they want to talk about it, they, by all means, if that's helping them, 100% they can, but we don't really ask questions like that. It's more about like, how have you overcome it? What can you tell other survivors out there about the healing journey? What are good support systems? So we get into a lot of the aftermath, which sometimes is worse.
Yeah.
Because then they're sitting there living with the trauma inside that some of them can't necessarily understand. So it can get pretty intense. There are some that I've had to cut like a lot out of because they get a little too overly emotional, which is fantastic, but it's also, I don't want them to like necessarily listen back to the episode and hear themselves being like that, because
they don't want to regret it, right? Anyway.
Yeah. So we try to keep it, I don't even know, like we try to keep it so that anybody can listen and learn from it. But again, if the survivor wants to talk about their details, then they absolutely 100% can. It's really, we try to give them the floor as much as possible.
That's awesome. And again, it's probably very therapeutic for them in some sense, hopefully. What's been like the most impactful episode that you guys have done?
So we just hit our 50th episode. My husband wasn't on the episode with me. It was actually my survivor story. So it was the first time that I was actually sharing it with anybody, aside from my husband. So I cried a lot while I was recording it, so I had to edit quite a lot out of that.
I listened to that today, and you did a good job editing out those parts.
You. Yeah. Thank you. So I haven't listened back to it. I just cut out those parts and just released it because I don't know if I can listen back to it. So that was a tough one.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And I think, we always hear that when you say, hear someone talk about it in their own words, right? And it's always just so much more meaningful, obviously, when people are able to talk about these things. But it's also the idea that, especially these days, opposed to much like this documentary we're going to talk about in a bit here, 30 or 40 years ago, right? We didn't have the words to talk about these things appropriately or even effectively. Whereas like today, we do have some sort of adapted language to talk about these things. Right. And like the way you kind of approach with the people you talk about, you're not necessarily, you're not looking for details. You're kind of exploring that more healthy way to like discuss it without reliving it.
Right. Exactly. We don't want to re-traumatize. And it's, again, sometimes it's cathartic for people to relive what has happened and really accept what has happened. But for some other people, they can hardly even reimagine. Some people don't even remember half of what they endured. So it's it's at their own pace.
Right.
Yeah.
So you don't have to answer this if you don't want, but like, how did you feel after recording your story?
At first I felt extremely relieved. I had recorded it about probably about a week before I released it.
Mhm.
So just getting it out was really helpful for me. But the day it was released, I was getting a flood of messages, which was phenomenal. I appreciated everyone reaching out to me who did. But it got me like really emotional.
Mhm.
My best friend didn't even know that this had happened, so she reached out to me, and so that was the first person I think that did that day. And it was just the floodgates opened, and like the whole rest of the day, it was just a mess, an absolute mess. I think I was supposed to actually be interviewed on a podcast that night, and I messaged them and I was like, listen, I can't do it. Like, I need to just
did a little too much today.
yeah. It was all about the self-care. Like, I just needed to decompress. But it's been amazing to be able to just kind of get it off my chest and just, talk about it, because I'd been holding it in for so long that I didn't realize how it was affecting me.
Right. Yeah, I can imagine it would just be like just the weight lifted off your shoulders, so to speak. Plus, the good thing is, like, even if just recording it, like, could have been a positive thing, and you didn't even have to release it, and then just like, but I think taking that extra step to like really put your story out there, I mean, that just is a huge step for someone who's gone through something like that. But then, like you said, it just it adds more. I can't think of the word I'm looking for. Validity is not the correct word, but that's what I'm going to use. Okay. But like, to like your show and to your listeners, to be like, not only do I have like people on to share their stories, but I myself have also gone through this, and this is my story. Right. So I think that's I don't know, that's just super cool, and adds like I don't know, an extra layer of authenticity to what you do. And I think, again, just helps break down that wall for other people. Be like, look, I've gone through something like this, and I will talk about it too. Just like, I'm asking my guests to, or whatever. That's just super cool.
Thank you. Yeah, that was part of the reason why I wanted to do it, because I have them come on and talk about their stories, and it's, this is going to sound really weird, but like, it's only fair that I then share mine as well. Like, these people are trusting me with their stories. Why shouldn't I trust them with mine? Mm-hmm. So, yeah,
that's sweet. Do you have any other questions, Nick, about Blackbird?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I really enjoyed that episode 50.
Thank you.
I did a lot of kind of like thinking along the way. You said a lot of really good things in there. Especially the part about where so many people don't at the time. And this goes back to like the words and the definitions to even know these things happen as much as they do. And it just makes you kind of go back and like rethink things, and like different situations is like, was it not, like, could it be, maybe not. And it's just really weird to reflect back from the words we use today to like talk about these things to how things were just even 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. But no, I think you do a really good job, and I did enjoy it.
Thank you.
Yeah. I listened to the Jean's Alibi one today, and another really messed up story, but I love just the name, Jean's Alibi.
The Jean's Alibi.
I was like, I got to figure out what the heck this is.
I know. It's ridiculous, but
yeah, like, what did you say that the court determined if because she is wearing denim jeans, they're tight, so they're hard for someone to take off. So
Yeah.
she consented because the guy got her pants off.
Correct. Yeah, the court
Oh my God.
the court ruled that that because her jeans were probably tight, because everyone knows that all jeans are tight somehow, that she had to have helped him take them off, and therefore she consented to the sexual activity. So
You can't make that stuff up.
Yep.
And that's why I love true crime stuff. 'cause
Ridiculous.
It's like you literally
Right.
cannot make this stuff up.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think that's half of the shock when it comes to the true crime is the legal system that works around these situations.
Yeah.
And how that just also, while there's these ridiculous things happening, period, the legal system deals with them in equally ridiculous ways.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. The fact that a group of people came together and decided that
Mhm.
these people belong in this Abducted in Plain Sight documentary.
Right?
They're like that level of dumb.
Really.
But yeah, so I wanted to ask a few questions about Podcasters Collective.
Sure.
Not to touch on it too much, but like what got that group and like organization, if you want to call it, together? Like how'd you meet Tom and all that stuff?
How did I meet Tom? I met Tom through other podcasting groups. We just we would see each other's posts a lot last summer. And we just started talking, and then he invited me on his podcast, and we became friends from there.
Oh,
and
nice.
And then after a little while, we were like, you know what, let's start a group and see if we can be a little different than the other podcasting groups that are out there on Facebook, because too many of those groups are just about, here's my new episode, listen, and then nothing else happens, or you know, sub for sub, or those little stupid things.
All the worst.
Yeah.
So this part of the conversation probably doesn't apply to many people listening, but I will say, of all the podcasting Facebook groups that I'm a part of, Podcasters Collective is my favorite, because
Thank
you guys
you.
do like the daily threads or whatever, and you're pretty strict on people not spamming gross stuff that people don't want to see, and I don't know, it seems like there's a lot of good conversations going on in the comments, and it's not just a bunch of people just mindlessly being like, listen to my stuff, I'm not going to answer anything anyone ever asks or whatever.
If we did sub for sub all the time, everyone that's listening right now would be another podcast. So that's perfect comment to make.
Or if they actually listened, if they didn't just sub to get a sub back, which is the worst. But these podcasting groups, I've met quite a few really cool people that I've had relationship. Well, that might sound weird, but that I am friends with now. You know, the Be Hero Fights guys, and they're really cool. I met them through a group. We've been on each other's shows quite a few times. They have a little home in our Discord.
Nice.
Yeah, there's just a lot of friends I've made through podcasting, which is probably my favorite part so far, I think, other than talking to that dork on a weekly basis.
Daily.
Just get to meet a bunch of new people. I would have never have spoken with you ever before if I wasn't into podcasting, which is cool.
Yeah. It's super cool. You get to meet such cool people. And on that note that you just mentioned before, that this part might not be necessarily for your listeners, but the Podcasters Collective isn't just for podcasters. We try to get listeners involved as well. Obviously, it's mainly podcasters, but we want more listeners in there too, because it's a group where podcasters are sharing actual important things, not just link dropping and asking for people to listen. It's a place for people to really find new connections or new podcasts that they wouldn't necessarily listen to unless they were in the group. So it's a place for listeners to find new shows to listen to also, and maybe network and be on a show.
True. And you guys, I think since I've joined the group, have done 2 virtual conventions. I don't know what the appropriate term is, but sorry, I'm choking on my extremely dry throat.
No.
But yeah, so that's also a really cool thing. Like, what was your last one? Spring break something
We
or
did
other?
spring break, yeah.
I'm so bad at names for things. I apologize. But yeah, that's another really cool thing. If you're not a podcaster but are trying to find things to listen to or watch, you had like was it a week long or was it over a couple weekends?
We
I
had
forget
2
the exact
weekends.
details.
2 weekends. Yep.
Yeah, just days packed of shows that you could check out.
Exactly. Yeah, our next one is October, the 22nd to the 24th. And we'll be doing one weekend. And yeah, it's going to be pretty similar format. A lot of panels, a lot of different shows. There're going to be some tutorials. So a lot of different things. We're going to be doing some contests. So it's not just for podcasters. So if listeners want to get involved and sit in and watch, or, be in on a panel if they even wanted to, totally watch a tutorial, all that stuff.
The viewers and the listeners are a very important part to all of this, and we must not forget that.
Very much so.
and also, I mean, we always kind of joke about it, how everyone started a podcast in 2020. But I mean, I think it is still our agenda, always in the background, is that we want to take listeners of even our show or just other, just non-podcasters and make them podcasters. Because I think anyone can just about do it, but it's about finding like the people that kind of want to and they don't know they do.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you have like a new podcast, which some might say that's the last thing we need, but I would beg to differ. I think Mike always talks about just like independent content creators, and I think that's what we need a lot of.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's one of the cool things that kind of happened with the explosion of YouTube and like Twitch, and now like the podcasting boom thanks to COVID. It's given a creative platform to people who might not have had a chance, opportunity, like finances, whatever barrier would be in the way to. Sorry, I'm trying so hard not to cough right now. But it gives them a platform to create and like get their ideas out there, and some things that might have blocked a creator from, I don't know, there's a lot of really cool indie creators that I watch on YouTube that are just people like us, but like have 1 million subscribers on YouTube. So like they make really great content, obviously, because they have a ton of people that watch their stuff all the time.
Yep.
But maybe they might not have had a chance to go out to California and try to like get into film or something. So they just grabbed a camera, taught themselves how to edit something in some video editing software, and then like made a name for themselves on YouTube.
Yeah.
So yeah, like Nick said, the more creators, the better, because you never know what you might be missing out on if, someone is, afraid to get their feet wet or something. But yeah, thank you so much for telling us all about all of your podcasting stuff. It was really interesting and really fun conversation, to be honest. But let's get into this insane Netflix documentary, Abducted in Plain Sight. So we asked Sarah, well, usually whenever we have a guest on, we like to try to pick a topic that falls within their, scope of content. So when we asked you to come on, I was like, true crime. Okay, we got to talk something true crime. So I threw the question out to you, what you thought might be a good one to cover, and you came back with Abducted in Plain Sight. So can you just give a brief explanation of the story here while I drink a gallon of water and cough with my microphone muted?
So it's basically a ridiculous, absurd story that this couple was manipulated by a family friend and essentially allowed him multiple times to kidnap their daughter. And they knew that all of these things were going down, and they just kind of continued to allow him to do these ridiculous things, and would constantly say, we were uncomfortable with what was happening.
It's so
but
bad.
Then still would just let it happen.
Yes.
So yeah.
I mean, this is where I prop up the whole, we did not have the words to understand these things, maybe like back in the 70s, because today I don't know anyone that would happen with or by. Like, it couldn't even remotely get close to that situation. We don't even talk to our neighbors sometimes because we think that something like that might happen.
Right.
Here, these people are inviting it, letting it, playing into it. It is bizarre.
Willingly allow it to happen.
Well, yeah, very much so. And
what the dad did, it got me. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Just could not process.
He's a character. To say the
and they're all on there. Like, they're all on there talking like present day, reflecting on
and
it.
he's just like,
family.
what are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do?
I thought that was the most interesting part, that they all agreed to come on this documentary and discuss what happened, thinking that everything was okay, that they're about to talk about. And I think that they were expecting like some sympathy from the viewers, and basically the viewers, I mean, as we're doing right now, we're just like, are you serious? There is no way that we are feeling sorry for anything that you did. This is just absolutely absurd.
It's a good stable for what not to let happen. Like, that's basically all it is. Like, if you don't want any of this to ever happen, just definitely don't do any of that. There's a lot more that can be done too, but
I don't think that, like, to the extent it happened here, would ever happen with a normal person, because they're not dumb as a box of rocks. But before we get any further, maybe just want to throw this out there. The story is pretty messed up, so we might talk about some things that are uncomfortable or disturbing. So here's your warning. But also note, I'm probably just going to make fun of it the whole time because it's absolutely ridiculous.
And, you know, that's why I wanted to choose this one, because there are so many true crime documentaries that I could have chosen, but I wanted to pick something that was a little more light, because it's we can't always talk about the heavy stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
So this is a little, you know, while it's obviously a terrible story what happened, it's so easy to make fun of it.
Yes, and I should clarify, the people I'm calling dumb this entire time are the victim's parents. I believe the victim's name was Jan, right?
Jan.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Jan, not her fault. She was like, what, 9 when this whole thing started? And then like
12, I think.
She was a young child being manipulated by a master manipulator, or what is, you know, shown to be a master manipulator. However, he was just manipulating really dumb people, so probably wasn't that great of a manipulator.
Right.
But, regardless, he was manipulating a child, which, you know, they're like clay. You can just mold them however you want them. So none of the making fun of there's no fault on Jan. I totally feel terrible for what happened to her, because anything happening to anyone, let alone a child, for this long and this serious is like super messed up, and I feel terrible for her. But man, her parents, holy crap. Nick, you got to tell me your thoughts on what you did watch, because I don't think you watched the whole thing, right?
Right. So my wife and I watched it, and she probably got about like 40 minutes in. I got an hour in, and we both like dozed off during it. And that's just like the documentary effect, and it just being like, I don't know, maybe it was putting me in like a trance or some sort of like weird place. But I mean, it's definitely one of those ones where I'm like, okay, we need to like skip through some of this and like get to the point. Like, we get it. Her parents are like super dumb, but at the same time, I guess it is important to cover as much detail as possible to make sure you don't miss anything in this story, because it's like, all right, what's the like thing that clicks where it's like, oh, okay, I kind of get it, but I have a feeling that doesn't happen. because they kind of let that go within 30 minutes of it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the point at which the first abduction, when she was gone for like day 3 or whatever, and they're like, yeah,
we'll call the police tomorrow.
My wife looks at me and is like, that would have been like the night of, like 10 a.m., like 10 p.m. Like, where is she? But they're like, no, days, it's fine, it's okay. What? No.
Right. They had more concern at that point for the guy's wife. They said the mother said, I don't want to upset Gail, who was his wife. But it's like your daughter is missing.
Yeah.
How are you going to equate the two? Your 12-year-old daughter has been abducted by someone, and you're more concerned about the guy's wife.
We get know them. They're your neighbors. Yeah. Like, we get that. But come on.
Exactly. This is your child.
Yeah. So like
they had like 5 of them. So maybe they were just.
We got 4 more.
Missed one. I don't know.
So the details of the crime, what happened, basically. I forget what the guy's name is, but they call him B a ton, so I'm just gonna call him B. They met B through church. He got close to their family. It would always hang out with the kids. Particularly had a fondness for Jan. Did a lot of super weird, creepy stuff that in no way, shape, or form would probably ever happen with a normal set of parents. But that went on for years, led up to a day where he basically drugged her with sleeping pills, threw her in an RV, and then drove out somewhere. He said he was going to take her horseback riding, whatever. Was gone for a handful of days. Eventually, like Nick said, the parents were like, okay, it's been like 5 days. I guess we should call the cops. They end up getting the daughter back. And like they know B did this, but for some reason, I forget exactly why, he either did little or no jail time, and then immediately came back within the the family there and pretty much did it again, except this time was there 3 total times? Because the second one, doesn't she come back again and then she runs away?
Yeah, I think he abducted her the second time, and then I think the third time was of her volition, if you want to even say. Because I mean, correct. She was still a minor, so she really had no say in what she was doing.
The whole time he's brainwashing her with these like alien cassette tapes, basically giving her like some weird combination of like Scientology and Mormonism like in a cassette, and being like, you have to have this guy's children or everyone you know is gonna die. And
the second time was the beginning of the brainwashing when she was like 12, right? And then the third time, like, brainwashing was in full effect. That's when they were like, this is not our daughter. She's, that's when she was completely convinced that I need to be with
exactly
here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So she ran away, and then eventually fell into B's captivity, and then he fled to Mexico. Eventually, they get their daughter back, and then even when they got her back the third time, she was still like, but I love B. Like, I want to be with him. I'm going to marry him.
They got married in Mexico.
Did they, or were they about to? Like, didn't they need, like, permission from the dad or something?
I think they got married in Mexico, and for them to come back, he was trying to get the parents to approve the marriage in the States to some degree.
A whole lot of messed up. And while all this is going on, obviously she's being abused the entire time.
Right.
On top of that, well, I should say on top of that, before all of that, B talked the mom into having an affair with him, which is, I mean, normal. I get it. I mean, not normal, but like in terms of this, like
it's more normal than what he was doing with Jan.
Yeah,
that's correct.
Like, okay, I can believe that. Maybe things weren't that great between Jan's parents. Okay, whatever. At the same time, he talks the dad into also having an affair with him.
Yep.
Like, just dudes being bros or something. I don't know.
I mean, the guy knows how to get some sort of twisted leverage on just dumb parents, essentially, because at that point, for both of them, like independently, because they didn't know about it, they thought that was worse than the safety of their daughter at the same time. So, like, the fact that they both did what they did to hide that, they were somehow still okay with whatever B might be doing with their daughter.
Right. Yeah. I mean, what still boggles my mind is, there was the one part where he said it was part of his therapy that he needed to lay in the bed with her.
That was insane.
And he would do that for like almost a week straight for like 6 months, something like that. And the mother, again, another one where she was just saying, oh, it was really uncomfortable for us. We really didn't like it, but it was part of his therapy. So we let it happen. And it's just the fact that she kept saying we were uncomfortable with what this guy was doing to our daughter, but we let it happen. And it's like, you're just feeding into it, and you're just telling everybody that you're guilty of doing it. And I always wonder what Jan, like, how she feels about what her parents did. Because they were complicit.
It's literally their fault.
Yeah, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. They were complicit in what happened to their daughter.
Especially to the point where they were basically being blackmailed. Yeah. But like at that point, like it's very complicit because they obviously, after the first kidnapping, it was crazy when the detective was like, we're trying to like piece together this pretty straightforward case. And then they signed that affidavit or whatever that said, yeah, no, we're not concerned with any of this.
Yeah. Yeah. So he like legit blackmailed his parents into like dropping the charges and stuff.
Right. Yep.
Insane.
Not too hard. He made it look easy, I guess.
Yeah.
Just drive down some road with dad, take mom to a lodge.
Yeah. I mean, okay. So can we just say one thing? Like, the mom was still clearly affected by that little fling. The way she was reminiscing, like there was still a twinkle in her eye.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Same thing with the dad.
Well, that was like I can't believe I did this. I'm bawling my eyes out, twinkle in his eye.
Yeah. He seemed upset over it. She seemed like she would have done it again.
Yeah. Sorry, Jan. I would have done it again.
But like, can we also just talk about the dad for a second? Like, how does that even happen? Like,
right? Like especially the way that he described it happening.
Yeah.
I can't. I mean, obviously, I'm not a man, so like, I couldn't.
Well, I am. So let me.
Yeah, and I assume you're a straight man. You said you're married to a woman, so
Yeah, I mean, so is he though, right? But like,
permission to mansplain, Mike. Go.
So first, even before the dad, I guess we just got to be like, talk about the set. Wow, that's terrible timing. But like the set that B had to just be driving down the road with dad and just be like, I could really use a hand. Like, how do you even do that? Like,
I thought at that point in the story,
how does that even come up? Like,
I thought at that point in the story, dad was gonna like come to his senses, punch the guy, and be like, "You're never seeing my daughter again."
Right?
That's, I think, how that normally would have gone down. But like, no, I'm gonna put myself in the worst position possible.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, "Hey, man, I know how you feel. I got this." Like, I don't understand.
I don't
like,
get it. It was it seemed like it was such an easy decision for him to make.
Right.
Yeah,
yet he seemed so upset over it. So it was like, was there more to it that you're just not sharing? Or
if I do it, my daughter doesn't have to do it, right? Like, is that how that went in his head?
Yeah.
But it didn't seem like it.
No.
Because wouldn't you say that? To like,
we're adding way too much color to their lack of color in their thought.
Okay. If there was something more there, like he was forced to do it at gunpoint, or like anything else to that story, why the heck wouldn't he say it? B's dead. Like, what are the repercussions of telling what actually happened?
Right.
Instead, he literally was just like, and I was just like, I guess, okay.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, really?
That's
all it took.
So easy. Yeah.
And that's the eeriness of their testimonies throughout all this, is that there doesn't seem to be any embellishments. Like, they're just saying exactly what happened.
Yeah.
So, like, to your point, Mike, like, why not all these years later just add a little bit of detail to make it sound a little bit better? But no, let's just roll with the worst. I don't know. It's like the worst thing that they could possibly say.
Yeah. I don't know. But like, I think even all the way back to your point about the parents being at fault and super dumb and the reason this whole thing escalated to what it did. I think even one of the daughters in the documentary towards the end was like talking about how she had to forgive her parents or something, or like how she doesn't like hold it against her parents or something like that. It was the one daughter who was like crying the entire time, probably because she's the only sane one that realizes what a messed up thing this was.
Not good. Yeah, she I can't remember now if she's the one in the beginning who said I had a weird feeling about him from the beginning. It's probably the same
apparently
sister.
The only person,
the only one
did.
Right.
And right there, she has like a reflection back on the events from like a present understanding of it. So like in hindsight, I had a weird feeling about it, where the rest of them are just kind of like, kind of just happened. No weird feelings at all.
Yeah.
It's so strange that so many of them collectively were of the same mind in such a dumb way. Because like usually when you get a group of people like that in a situation like that, you'll at least have one person who's like, no, this is not okay, and then it'll kind of like start to trickle to other people and they'll start to understand, this isn't okay. But the fact that the entire group of them was just like, I don't see anything wrong with this. Like, it's bizarre.
The other weird thing is, after the first time, like, obviously they knew that B was doing this stuff, and he would just like call the family and be like, I'm gonna marry your daughter. And they're like, oh, B, cut it out.
You're so harmless. You only kidnapped her once for 5 days.
Yeah,
exactly.
You just call me every other day telling me you want to marry my underage daughter.
Oh my goodness. And
silly goose.
They even talked to his brother, and his brother was like, he's a known pedophile.
That dude was cool from the get-go. He was just straight up like, that guy's there.
Again,
he's probably my favorite character of the whole show.
One of the other only sane people in this entire thing. He was just like, no, he's like a bad dude. Like, no.
And
he always was like that.
He even alluded
to he could sell any car. Great salesman.
And he even alluded to, like, that's like one of the first things he says, and it was almost like from a outside observation, like you could go to church and observe B's behavior of having an infatuation with little girls. He said it like that, like it was just plain as day to everyone except everyone it mattered.
Yes, exactly.
Also, can we talk about the most anticlimactic like reveal of the entire thing? It was when the brother's just like, he killed himself.
Right.
Like, that was the reveal of him dying. He's just like, he's dead.
I feel like the entire thing was anticlimactic. Like nobody was like overly excited about what they were talking about. They didn't seem to have any sort of feelings towards what was actually happening. So I mean, I feel like that documentary, like, aside from the story, was just not very well done.
I mean, very early on there, you got to the climactic point, and clearly dude's pedophile. Like, ta-da! Like, first 10 minutes, they just like crack that one wide open. And after the first kidnapping too, where basically they determined that there was no sexual assault based on like the way he went about it, and they were like, oh, thank God, like that's like that didn't happen. But so that means the kidnapping was okay. Everything was just fine.
We'll let it slide this time, buddy.
Yeah.
Next time, just 2 days. Bring her back.
Yeah.
48 hours.
It's
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah.
You know-
I think. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask you, Mike. You know, you have daughters. Like, how in the world would, I mean, I can imagine how you would react, but like, I can't imagine being a parent of girls, especially, and having somebody come to me and be like, you know, I want to take your one daughter on a trip with me by myself with no other children, no, not my wife, just her alone. Like, how would you react to something like that if your neighbor just came to you and was like, hey, I'm friends with you, I want to take your daughter horseback riding by ourselves?
Yeah,
like,
probably not well.
Yeah. Right.
A good place to start is like a stern no. Like,
Yeah,
that's a good
no,
place to start. No,
thank you.
We could talk
no.
about the other implications of this question later. For now, no.
But yeah, I think also that a little bit of that comes into play with Nick's point about the time that this happened.
Yes.
Like, my wife and I always have conversations about this stuff, especially now that we're parents and parents of girls. The world has always been a messed up place, but back then, you know, back in the 70s, 80s, you know, early part of the 90s, obviously before then, it wasn't as known because they didn't have the technology, you know, like now everyone has a camera in their pocket and access to the internet. So something happens, somebody is recording it and then posting it to the internet, or, you know, social media, like the world will know instantly now if something happens. So that means people are getting caught way more frequently and their stories are being shared way more frequently. So now the world is hyper aware of sexual predators and serial killers and all that stuff.
Right.
So today, obviously the answer would be no way, no, there's no possibility of my daughter going with anyone alone. But in the 70s, if you're like a really good family friend, I could see why that would be like an okay thing. But you know, after he kidnaps her for the first time, you're never seeing my family again. There's definitely no way I'm going to let you sleep in my daughter's bed for weeks on end because your therapist says you have to.
Fake therapist.
Yeah,
fake therapist, right.
There is definitely a line, but like I could see up to that part, like logically happening. Yeah. Because of the time period.
Yeah, no, and that's a good point. Also, I think it should be said that they were part of the same church. So, you know, a lot of congregants are very trusting of each other. And you know, you feel like you're a family when you're in you know, faith-based religions together. So I completely get it in that respect, that they trusted him. You know, he was a man of God. They really felt that he was a good person. But exactly, I mean, after the first significant instance, like, how can you just continue down that road? That it's
be a moron.
Yes. Exactly.
And it also lines up with the emergence of all these different fields of not law enforcement, but, you know, persecution of criminals and things that aren't correct in society, right? So you have Mindhunter, where that explores like the psychology of serial killers and that kind of stuff. You know, you watch Waco, that's when they first really invented the whatever, like, part of the FBI that pursues those types of situations. But the same thing with this, like we have observed way more patterns now and can see this stuff much more early. So where, that's the guy from church, that's your neighbor, that's family, that gets you in so far. But maybe along the way, everyone's much more hyper aware, like Mike said, of the patterns that just don't add up anymore. Where back in the 70s, no one really thought about it. They were like, no, that was just B taking daughter on a horseback riding trip.
Right.
Exactly.
See how this goes in the morning.
So, and to add on to that, like I I do go to church. I'm a Christian, and I'm pretty like heavily involved in our church. I'm on staff. The thing about churches now is like anyone who works in children's ministry at all, like does classes for kids, like they get background checks, like they like security in terms of kids at church is like actually a thing now.
Yeah.
Like most places will only release kids if they have like, you know, matching stickers as the parent,
Right.
even if they know the parent, which everyone knows everyone at a church most of the time. But like, you know, and on top of that, like I said, being a father of 2 little girls, and you know, we have a third on the way here in like a month. Watching things like this that involve kids is very hard because once you have kids, like even fictional movies that involve kids or shows that involve kids, it's just like you immediately put yourself in that place as the parent, and it's tough sometimes. But this was so ridiculous. I was like, there's no way I'd be in that position, because that guy's literally a rock. Like, he is a rock. He's so dumb. But after my wife and I finished it, you know, then she's like, it's crazy. Like, you can't really like trust anyone because, you know, predators can be anywhere, and it's kind of true. But then at the same time, it's like, how do you not live your life in fear, but also like be cognizant of, you know, tossing handies to your dude friend in the car so he can like kidnap your daughter for the 4th time. Like,
I mean, I think people just need to become more educated about what the signs are of things like that. I think also people still to this day believe, you know, it's more stranger danger than it is a person that you know, because obviously we want to trust the people that we know and do trust. So we can't expect that they're going to be the people who are doing this, but you know, it's the majority of the time the perpetrator is someone you know, someone you have some sort of relationship with. So I think we kind of need to like switch the focus from a lot of that stranger danger thing, and by no means do we take it away, because strangers can still harm people. But I think we need to kind of start looking at the signs of what could be unhealthy with somebody that you actually know. I think we need to kind of get into that mindset, because clearly it still happens like 90% of the time. I think it's something like that with children, that it's someone they know.
Yeah. And like, this was our oldest's first year of school, kindergarten. She just finished yesterday, actually. But like in our area, there was just a bust of like a bunch of teachers for doing things like this. I mean, not nearly as bad, but like having inappropriate conversations with kids, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
So it's like, as a parent, it's like, how do I navigate today's world? Like, they're not safe in school, according to this documentary. They might not be safe in church. You know, you got to watch out for, like you said, family members, close friends, like, but at the same time, like, you can't live your life in fear, because it's crippling to you, and then obviously not healthy to people who aren't predators that you know, if they're always being assumed of being a terrible person. You know, I don't know.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's one I think we should also you know, teach children that if something is not okay to them, if they feel uncomfortable, to speak up about it. Because a lot of times, you know, if it's someone they know, especially, they'll tell the child like, oh, you know, if you tell so-and-so, I'm going to hurt mommy and daddy, and they don't want mommy and daddy to be hurt. So they don't tell anybody. But, you know, teaching them that it's okay to say something because they're protected. I think a lot of times too, parents will turn a blind eye to it because they think their kid is lying. And
Yeah.
most of the time their kid is not lying. So,
Right.
allowing them that safe space and that protection and letting them know that it's okay to just say, hey, I'm uncomfortable with this. I want to talk to you about it. I know that that's like not the easiest thing, especially with like very young kids, but
Right. Yeah.
have the
Well,
conversation with them too about like consent and things like that. And it doesn't have to be anything that has to do with like sexual consent, but like just
Right.
consent about, playing with toys or their clothing or just hugging somebody. If they don't feel comfortable
Yeah.
hugging somebody, tell them, okay, cool. You don't have to hug that person. That makes you uncomfortable.
Right.
You do what you need to do to be comfortable. It's, little things like that. I think that's what's going to start shifting the mindset of society. We gotta really all be doing this in order to like get past,
Kids have good intuition too. So if they know the proper words to describe that intuition, it's a lot easier. And my wife was, I think it was an article or something, but it was kind of alluding to the fact that just educating your children to have the proper terms or have a set proper terms with them about things, so they're not describing something and calling it something that it's not, where it gets lost in translation. But so they're using the proper words. So if something does happen, they can effectively communicate to you that what happened. And you can be like, that doesn't sound right at all.
100%. 100%.
Yep. Definitely educating our children for sure is super important. And then something that you alluded to, Sarah, about like I've been guilty of this. A lot of parents are guilty of this, but like kids are shy sometimes, most of the time. And like, say you're at a family function or like a function with friends or whatever, and like a friend says hi and your kid just hides behind you because they're shy. We'll just be like, oh, just say hi. It's, so and so, like, go give them a hug. It's fine. And maybe they don't want to, like, instead of like being like, no, really, just go give them a hug. It's fine. Just be like, okay, you don't have to say hi or whatever. It's okay to just hide behind me if you want.
Yeah.
Just being aware of little things like that.
Yeah.
For sure.
Exactly.
But yeah. Overall thoughts. We'll start with Sarah on this documentary. So let's go like, as a viewer, like story aside, but just like the documentary as a whole, how it's put together, entertainment factor, like, did you like it? Was it good? What are your thoughts in that aspect?
I didn't think it was a well done documentary. I think it was very confusing. They jumped around a lot when they didn't really explain like when particular things were happening. So I think that made it a little difficult to follow the storyline. And I just felt like I said before, everyone was just so lackluster in what they were talking about. And I don't know if that was just because that's how they are. But I just felt like it was so, like, they were so apathetic about everything. So I don't know if that was because of them or because of the way the documentary was, but I didn't find it that entertaining.
Now, story-wise, like the case itself, what did you think about that?
I mean, incredibly bizarre, incredibly absurd. Definitely the story itself was entertaining, if you want to even call it that, because it is so weird and intriguing. But it made me mad because these parents were just complete idiots.
Yes. So overall, would you recommend somebody watch this or not?
Oh, that's a tough one.
That's what we do here. We bring the hard-hitting questions.
I think, right. I think that I don't know if I would probably recommend people just like find a review about it and just read about what it's about rather than watching it.
Maybe this podcast or something.
Yeah.
Like this episode, maybe.
Yeah. Exactly.
Nice. Okay. Nick, I think I know how you feel about this, but tell the world.
Yeah, so for a format that I already can't grasp very well, they definitely just dropped the ball in even attempting to make me like this format anymore. The whole documentary, like Sarah said, it was very poorly done. It was confusing. They really just threw a string of just very obvious but terrible details at you the whole time. And it's just a constantly like, what's happening? He's doing all these things and no one seems to care. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't recommend it to anyone to watch. Definitely watch this episode or read about it. And that's kind of like what I like to do also. I like to read about these things a little bit more just because it gets me the details without the constant drawn out documentary style of it. Maybe make a dramatization of it if they could like get the story a little bit more concise. Yeah, and I was also concerned with Jan in general about her testimony of it. How complacent she is with it, or just the way she described it. Like, I don't know if it's all completely settled there. Like, I don't know. Like, that's just like her way of just coping with it. But at the same time, I think it's worth watching at least some of it, like I did. I watched most of it, but watch some of it just to see what's happening. But also just kind of reflect on how far we've come and how at least smart most people are versus these people. It's not that hard. So, yeah, I mean, it was interesting. It is a bizarre thing indeed. If you really have like an hour and a half to kill and you like this kind of stuff, watch it. But don't expect to be at all blown away, entertained, or anything like that.
Oh, you will be entertained.
I get
for a completely different reason.
Uncle, the brother was still, he was the best.
Yeah.
They should have introduced him like later, like at the end, where it was like, okay, like third act, where it's just kind of, here's one guy who completely understood what was going on. Dude's pedophile, straight up, wasn't right.
They could have just had him like a 10-minute documentary of just the brother being like, yeah, this B, what a creep, totally a pedophile, he's dead.
They should have put all his footage at the front end, and then they're like, okay, now an hour and a half of the family talking about it.
They do like a record scratch, like, you're probably wondering how we got to this.
Right?
Yes.
You're probably wondering how the victims feel.
That's awesome. But yes, I would have to agree that the documentary is not the greatest documentary stylistically, like cinematically. I don't know if that's an appropriate word, but like in terms of being a documentary, not exactly the greatest. The story is mind-blowing. It's like right up there with, have you seen the other Netflix documentary called The Legend of Cocaine Island? If you have not, you should watch it, because it's another one of these. This one's better because it doesn't involve like, pedophiles and the ongoing abuse of a small child for years. It's a much more lighthearted story, but equally as unbelievable. Like, the entire time we watched The Legend of Cocaine Island, I was like, this could literally be like a Will Ferrell movie.
Oh my God.
Like, that's the story of it, is like you would expect it to be a Will Ferrell movie, but it's totally true.
Wow.
Funnily enough, like 5 months after my wife and I watched that, I found an article that they are actually making it into a movie, and it's going to be like a comedy. So like, I'm actually really excited about that. And also, I want some money, please, because you definitely heard that from my phone in my living room.
Your idea, exactly.
Yeah, check that out, because it's like right up there. But that documentary is actually really well done. That's the big difference. But yeah, I still don't understand how this was able to happen. I think if you're a true crime fan, you probably should watch it because of the content itself is so bizarre. you'll probably really enjoy it. And it has a little charm, like creepy factor where they put like audio clips of B talking about this stuff. Very disturbing. Good addition to the documentary, I think. The brother, like you guys, like we've already talked about, is like the best character because he like gives no F's, like doesn't even look like he really wants to be there, and just like gives the most straight up answers to like whatever they asked him.
If he still talks to his brother, I would like to know how he opens every conversation with his brother. Like,
spoiler alert, he can't because B killed himself.
Yes.
So B's dead.
Well, no, hit the dad.
Oh, the dad talking to his brother. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Another great thing so far out of this documentary, tons of memes, great GIFs. So if you're into that, you'll love this. But yeah, I'd say, you know, sideways thumb, like I'm like 50-50 here with this.
Proceed at your own risk.
Yeah. But yeah, before we kind of wrap up here, I wanted to throw out 2 cool YouTube channels that deal with true crime. There's a really larger one called That Chapter. It's one of my favorite YouTube channels. He does really short. Well, I guess it depends on what you consider short. But he does like 20 to like his longer videos might hit 30 minutes. But right in that range, just recapping a true crime story. They're pretty good. So look up That Chapter. He puts out videos Tuesdays and Thursdays. They're super good, really entertaining. And then a recent channel I found is called Wendigoon, and he doesn't do so much like primarily true crime, but he has a really cool iceberg video on true crime. I don't know if you guys have seen this iceberg trend, where basically somebody makes a graph and it's a picture of an iceberg, and you have, you know, the little part that's sticking out of the water, and then like the large part that's under the water, and they make tiers, and like his unsolved true crime iceberg, you know, the more popular, well-known, not as bizarre cases are at the top of the iceberg, and then like by the time you get down to the bottom of the iceberg, it's like these really crazy, brutal, messed up like cases that you might not have ever heard of. It was really cool, but it's really long. It's like an hour and 20 minutes, so you gotta be comfortable. But yeah, so I don't know, do you guys have any? I already know Nick doesn't, because he doesn't care about true crime, but do you have, Sarah, any true crime podcasts or YouTube channels or other documentaries that you're like a big fan of, or series or whatever?
I mean, I love a good documentary. I really do. When Netflix was like really in their prime of making true crime documentaries, I was obsessed with most of them. Making a Murderer was like one of my top ones, because honestly, again, it just shows how the legal system just kind of screws people. I honestly don't really listen to too many podcasts anymore. I don't have time, and I feel so bad. But I'm gonna throw out for true crime. They do paranormal and stuff too. But one of the moderators for the Podcasters Collective, Rosa, and her sister Angela, they do the Ripple podcast.
Oh, nice.
They are super fun to listen to. Rosa's laughter is so infectious. Like I love listening to her laugh. I tell her that all the time. So they're one of my top, because they're so enjoyable to listen to. And they talk about cases that like you really don't know about. They talk about really bizarre things. And again, it's not always true crime. They do like paranormal and stuff like that. They talk about like Yetis and stuff.
Nice.
So they do a lot of other stuff. Who else? Oh my goodness.
Oh man, you say Yetis, and that reminded me. There's a docu-series on Hulu called Sasquatch.
Yes, I haven't.
Have you seen it? I haven't watched it yet either, but I want to watch it really bad. But it's a true crime documentary about Sasquatch. Sign me up.
Oh man, so funny. I these things. If you're into that kind of stuff, have you ever heard of the Dyatlov Pass mystery? Okay.
Yeah.
So for anybody out there who hasn't heard of that, if you want true crime that is really bizarre, go find out about that that story, the Dyatlov Pass, because it is like, who the hell knows what actually happened in that case.
This is where you insert that it was aliens meme, the guy from Ancient Aliens or whatever.
Love him.
Aliens.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
So I'm gonna plug the Ripple podcast. There you go.
Nice. Shout out. Here we go.
Shout out.
So yeah, there's one final thing. A tradition we've carried on, except for maybe one of our guests that I forgot, because I went on a streak of like forgetting stuff to do in episodes, even though like I have a sheet of what I need to talk about in front of me.
Right.
But one thing that we always ask our guests before they leave is, our staple question. You see it in the bottom corner there. I'm really bad at pointing on camera right there. What's watching? So like, what are you currently watching these days, Sarah, when you're not watching Abducted in Plain Sight?
You don't want to know what I'm watching. Oh my God. We just recently got HBO Max, so I've actually been watching The Nanny.
Nice.
I've been binging that as my breaks from school. We watch Friends all the time.
Nice. Did you watch the reunion?
We did. We just watched it before I came on with you guys, actually.
Nice.
So
was it good?
Yeah. We enjoyed it. We didn't have high hopes for it, to be honest. When we read about who the guests were going to be, we were kind of like, well, what do these people have to do with Friends? But it actually turned out to be really good. It was more than what we had anticipated. So I enjoyed it very much.
Nice.
Yeah.
A person we work with, Nick Fran, had like a watch party for the reunion. And like Becca showed me before I came down here, she had like cookies made for this watch party that were like Friends themed.
Oh my
That's
God,
funny.
awesome.
So she was like, yeah,
Amazing.
waiting for this to happen. So
amazing. Yeah,
That's funny.
it's our favorite show. So we actually, when we got married, our best friend married us. He's the one who introduced us.
Nice.
So he's our Joey to our Monica and Chandler. And when he married us, he actually did the speech that Joey did when he was making fun, like trying to think of his speech and the giving and receiving and all of that stuff. And so he put that into his speech, and it was amazing. So we're obsessed with that show.
That's great. Well, thank you for answering the most important question of the entire episode was what's watching, for sure. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Why don't you plug your stuff one last time? Tell everyone where they can find you.
Yeah. So Blackbird and Advocacy podcast, you can find at our Bite Size, which is bytesize.me/Blackbird Advocacy. And the Podcasters Collective, you can also find us at our Bite Size at bytesize.me/the Podcasters Collective. And if you want to join the group on Facebook, we are called the Podcasters Collective, and it is not just for podcasters. So listeners and anyone else, viewers, anyone who's thinking about joining a podcast or starting your own podcast, or you want to be a guest on a podcast, whatever it is, you enjoy podcasts, join the group.
Yes. And don't you just love like rattling off those links? That's my least favorite thing about podcasting.
It's terrible. I wish that there was just like an easier, like if you just hit a.com, you'll find like it's so annoying.
Yeah. But yes, go listen to Blackbird. The Podcasters Collective does have a podcast too, correct?
We do. Yep.
So you can listen to them as well as, follow them on Facebook and their social medias. The Podcasters Collective YouTube page will be a featured page under our featured channels on our YouTube page. So you should be able to find them nice and easy there. We have a comment here from our friends at Be Hero. They say, good show, friggin' crazy stuff. Made me think of my childhood and more importantly, my kids. There is some messed up people out there.
Yep.
Very true. Very true. Which is, again, like I was kind of talking about earlier, why it's sometimes hard for me to watch stuff like this because it's just like, what is this world that I'm bringing these kids into?
Yeah. That's why we don't talk about kids on the podcast. That's one genre I won't get into. I don't talk about cases with children.
It's rough. But yeah, so we're gonna wrap up here. We tried to make it a concise one.
Thank you.
But alas, it never happens because
I made it through. So
you did. I'm so proud of you. You stayed awake. Take that, Mick. You know who you are. But yeah, so just a few things for Showboys here. Make sure you join our Discord. Jump in there. It's a real fun place to be. You join our little community. It's the best place to stay up to date on all things Showboys. And we have just a nice little community growing in there. And we have all different channels with all different kinds of topics and a lot of really cool people who just enjoy talking about the nerdy and dorky things that we all like. So go ahead, join the Discord. It'll be great. I promise. If you enjoyed what you heard tonight, please consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing on whatever platform you are listening or watching on. It would be greatly appreciated, and it helps indie content creators such as ourselves grow and wiggle our way into the almighty algorithm, which, please, we need you, algorithm.
We don't need that algorithm.
Yes. Don't listen to Nick. We do. We need you. We have what do we got? The Bad Batch companion series coming up Sunday night.
That's right. Every Sunday, 9 p.m. Eastern. Tune in and we cover every episode of The Bad Batch in decent detail, recap, and conversate about it along the way.
Decent detail.
Decent detail.
You really sold it there. We averagely cover this show.
I try to keep it short. I don't try to get under an hour, but it never works.
I know, it's so hard. Yes, that is Sunday night, 9 p.m. right here on our YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch channels. And this Monday, we have a new episode of the newscast for you guys, which also will be at 9 p.m. on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. So we hope to see you Sunday and Monday. And thanks again, Sarah, for coming and hanging out and chatting with us. Yes, please check out her podcasts. And until next time, have a wonderful evening. Good day.